Super Kicking It with Kelsi presents Two-Faced Wrestling Talk with Kelsi and Paul, brought to you by PWPNation.com, the reliable wrestling website for news and opinions. And now here's your host, Kelsi.
Hi, and we've got so much wrestling to talk about. It's been an exciting week.
Yes.
And before we do that, though, please check us out on Instagram, Facebook, and most importantly, Twitter at TwoFacedPod, TWOFACEDPOD. And also be sure to follow us on iTunes and give us a good rating, please, if you like us.
And how about your personal Super Kicking It?
Yeah, and if you like my content, for more stuff that I do, including edited videos, check me out on YouTube at Super Kicking It with Kelsi. Just search that on YouTube. And on Instagram, Facebook, Periscope, and Twitter at Super Kicking It, SUPERKICKINGIT.
And you can follow me at PBoron88. But enough plugs. Let's get to all the action, and there was plenty of it.
Gosh, was there. Well, the biggest thing that we attended this weekend was New Japan Pro Wrestling Strong Style Evolved.
Yes, you may notice we're wearing matching shirts if you're watching us on YouTube. I can tell you that was not my idea, let's just say. And it wasn't Daryl's idea. So
Daryl!
that leaves one other being on the set whose
Me.
idea it was. So if you think it's cute, it's her idea. If you think it's goofy, it's her idea. All right, but yes, Strong Style Evolved. It was an amazing show. We had so much fun getting to see so many people we've been watching on TV. Some you saw last year when you went to the New Japan event. Obviously, for me, a lot of these guys, first time I've ever seen them in person. It was awesome.
So your first impressions, because you are the one who hasn't seen most of it and most of them in person. So what are your thoughts first?
Well, I mean, I liked it better than on TV because the one thing I'll say is the American crowd is more into it throughout. So it was an electric environment.
It really was.
It was amazing. So, and that's not disparaging the Japanese crowd. I'm just saying it was a different feeling because it was hot and it wasn't, the stupid WWE chants, that permeate the show. It was just genuine energy and genuine passion for what was going on in the ring and outside the ring.
Yeah, I really noticed that as well. But one comment, I like the Japanese crowd. I think they're so respectful.
I know.
I just think that this American crowd was different. You could tell that. Everyone in the room was just so excited, like they've been waiting forever for this, even though it's only been like a year. Mm-hmm. It shows you that the U.S. fans are really excited about New Japan Pro Wrestling, and I think it's going to go places here. In fact, there was a big announcement about their move into the U.S. market. What was that announcement?
Yeah, July 7th, there's going to be another show. So now this is how quickly it's grown. Last year, it was the first time there was ever a show. Mm-hmm. Now we're going to have a second show this year, July 7th, Cow Palace in San Francisco. The venue in Long Beach was packed and a decent size. Cow Palace is even bigger. I mean, the Sharks, the hockey team, actually started before they moved into the Shark Tank. That's where they started. So this is a big-time building, a historic building in San Francisco. And so this is a big deal for New Japan Pro Wrestling, and I'm sure it'll be another amazing show.
I really want to go, but we'll have to see. That's exciting news for them, but let's get into the nitty-gritty, the matches. Mm-hmm. We're going to save Suzuki for a little while because we know that, that was a big deal to me. But let's start off with what everyone's talking about, the Golden Lovers versus the Young Bucks.
It was amazing. I think it was better than even I expected it was going to be. Just so many great spots, great physicality, and some of the spots, like I was legitimately into it. Like I was worried.
Me too. I'm always worried about these matches.
When Kenny went through the table, he bent kind of awkwardly. That made me nervous. Ibushi one time on one of his moves landed right on his head really awkwardly. And even Nick on the move outside the ring, he kind of landed weird too. So it was really physical. It was really high flying. Great storylines throughout. And they really did a good job of selling it too.
They really did. And let's talk about storylines. In the match, the clear-cut heels were the Bucks, which I found surprising considering they hyped up this documentary that New Japan World released the day before this match. And in this documentary, to me, the Bucks they don't come off like the heels. the way that they were painting this in this documentary. So to me, that's kind of confusing. You go into the match and they are playing the clear-cut heels. Like really, really heelish. Matt's using the belt on Kenny and he's just angry. But to me, the deeper story is, you know, the Young Bucks, they're hurt. And they also want to prove their worth. They're some of the, you know, greatest... They're the greatest, to me, tag team in the world. And that's why my only qualm was them playing such clear-cut heels and also the finish. Because to me, it was a clean finish. Mm-hmm. And it's just like, you know, you built the Bucks up for so long as the best tag team in the junior division. 7-time tag team champs in the junior division. And then they lose so easily in their debut in the heavyweight division. Mm-hmm. I don't know. I would have liked to have seen some kind of interference, something go amiss, something that wasn't so clear-cut so that there could be a series of matches so that they could trade wins. But I know it's probably because the Golden Lovers are so over. That's why they were the faces. That's why I guess the finish was so clear-cut. And I'm not trying to take anything away from the match because I loved it. It was amazing. I had a lot of fun. And let me just say, our quick experience, Kenny Omega's walking out, right? You didn't see this firsthand because you were kind of back taking pictures. I went
Kenny,
up to,
yeah.
yeah, I always went up to the front to see Kenny. And so I was wearing my Young Bucks vest, my costume, and a Young Bucks shirt. And so Kenny's coming up right to where I am because we're in the first like row on the balcony thing. And he could see me. He's coming up and too sweeting people all around me. And he goes to too sweet me. I shake my head and I say no. And I open my vest and it's the Young Bucks shirt and I go, Young Bucks! And he saw me. I know he saw me. We looked right at each other. We had eye contact. And I snubbed him. I snubbed Kenny Omega, and it was flippin' awesome.
Well, and people have told you that they saw that interaction on video. So
I'm a little short. You can see it. You could definitely see me mouth the Young Bucks. You can't see that his eyesight's directly to me, but I know it was, like, because I saw it right there. And you can kind of see the interaction.
Well, and if you're me, I can piece together from what we'll watch on the video and what you've already watched and where I was. I know he definitely looked at you. Now, I didn't see your interaction, but I saw him. And obviously on the video we see you, so
it was
the
awesome.
Young Bucks Homer was giving it to Kenny, which who would have guessed that 6 months ago?
I was like the only person in there, it felt like, for a while chanting for the Bucks. You heard it. It was silent sometimes. Then the Golden Lovers got some chants, and then I was yelling out, Young Bucks! I was still on their side, even though they were the heels.
We haven't talked about this before, and I'll ask your thoughts on this. Obviously, the storylines are built. Do you think in any way they played with the crowd a little bit, too, and got a feel of who the crowd was into, and maybe that's why the Young Bucks maybe even went more heelish than maybe even we would have expected, because the crowd was definitely pro Golden Lovers.
They were. I feel like they anticipated that, and that's why they played the heels, because the Young Bucks are over, but the Golden Lovers, there's some kind of passion that has been ignited. People are so happy that they've reunited, obviously. The American crowd, I was surprised, was just as into it as the Japanese crowd, because we heard how excited the Japanese crowd was when they first got back together. It was insane. You never hear a Japanese crowd that loud. But no, the American crowd kind of echoed that reaction, and they were really into the Golden Lovers. So I feel like this was probably pre-planned, but I'm sure it was even greater of a leaning towards the Golden Lovers than they expected.
Yeah, it was a hot crowd, and they were definitely into it. And again, spots were great, and the storytelling was really good. That's something I wanted to talk a little bit about too. Kenny's getting ready to deliver the V trigger. And as he goes to point, and I can see it, and I pointed it out to you, I can see it from our seats. He's like shaking his finger like he can't do it. He can't bring himself to do it.
Oh, so good.
And then there was a pause, and then about 10 seconds later, Ibushi grabs his hand and makes him do the V-trigger, and then they deliver, and then, of course, they get the victory and all that. So
well
I thought
done. Great
storytelling there, too. Like, he was conflicted.
Yeah, and then another great point of storytelling, a little touch like we've been talking about for weeks, little touches in wrestling that bring a match from good to great. Here's one example that I feel like was the best part of the match. Matt Jackson being set up for the one-winged angel, and Kenny can't do it.
Oh, yeah.
You know, he almost lets go. And then Matt grabs Kenny's hand and is like, do it. Like, puts his hand back around his own neck, and then Kenny delivers the one-winged angel. Amazing. Just kind of like Matt didn't want him to hold back. He wanted it to be a competition between the best tag teams in the world. So I felt like that was a nice touch, and really the whole crowd kind of gasped. It was awesome. Well done.
And we've got a lot of questions coming up about the result of this match, what it means, maybe some other possibilities. So we'll look forward to that in the
Yep.
question and answer segment. But let's talk about some of the other matches. Suzuki and Zack Sabre Jr. against Okada and Ishii. This was my second favorite match. I thought it was going to be my favorite after it happened, but then Golden Lovers and Young Bucks was so good, I had to move it to second. But man, it was so good, and we got to see Suzuki in person.
I was so excited. I still am excited. Suzuki Gun, Ichiban, Kazaninere. I have to do my little Suzuki plugs. Man, it was like nothing else hearing the crowd chant Kazaninere and me getting to chant it too.
Yeah,
live.
I thought you were going to be one of the few, and it was like
it was
the whole
everyone.
crowd. Yeah.
It was awesome and magical. I know that sounds a little corny and like a forced word, but I am not exaggerating. I know it sounds corny, but it is true. To me, Suzuki is one of the best heels in all of wrestling. He's somebody special. He's like a once-in-a-lifetime type of legend. And to see him live, which we didn't know if we would ever get to, that is something special that I cannot say how important it was to me. It was awesome. And just talk about, I know you loved the Ishii and Suzuki trading blows. Let's talk about that because that was awesome.
Well, I mean, we can talk about it in this regard, what we said at the beginning of the show about how the crowd was hot. I mean, insane. And they were during that match. But when it came to them trading blows, the entire crowd, deathly silent. So you could hear Suzuki's forearm hitting Ishii's face. And then the return and, yeah, the evil smile. And, oh, my God, it was so good. And then, you know, not just that, but getting to see Okada in person, getting to see Ishii in person.
Yeah.
Zack Sabre Jr., we happen to see on Friday. We'll talk about that, too. And speaking of Zack Sabre Jr.,
something's happened to us.
what's going on?
I don't know. I'm so confused. You know, for weeks, even on this podcast, we've been saying, you know, we're not a fan of his style. He's not our favorite. Something has happened to us. I don't know what, but we're fans, I think.
Yeah.
Are we fans of Zack Sabre Jr. now?
After this weekend, I'd have to say we are. And, you know, as much as I was kind of intrigued by him in the Cruiserweight Classic, I never was overly excited. But after the two matches we saw him this week,
You're sold?
I'm sold on ZSJ.
God, yeah. His heel work, so like, in-depth, so great. It gives him a personality.
And putting him with Suzuki, too. Just, they're perfect together. They're perfect because they hate everybody. They beat up the ref at the end of the match. I mean, they're great together.
I like how when Zack Sabre Jr. wins, he just walks away. Like he did that in the New Japan match, just kind of walks out. Oh, I love it. I love everything about what he's doing as a heel. And it just has made me, and I know you, like him a lot.
Yeah.
I might even call him one of my favorites now, which is insane to me because a few weeks ago, he wasn't to that level for me at all.
It's gone from the semifinals of the New Japan Cup where we were kind of lukewarm to now we're big fans.
It's crazy.
You know, the other guys in the match, getting to see Ishii in person, he was awesome. Okada, and we talk about the knowledge of the fans there. He's gotten so much pub about his dropkick. When he nailed the dropkick, a dropkick, which shouldn't even really be that big a thing, crowd went nuts. So, to me, I mean, I'm even getting goosebumps talking about the match right now.
It was great.
It was so good.
I mean, it's something.
It was everything for me.
It was like representative of what that whole show I think meant to us, especially because we are such big fans of Suzuki. I'm a big fan of Ishii and Okada as well. And it's funny that you say that the crowd was so into a dropkick, which really shows you how important New Japan is at just making simple moves great. How the in-ring work is so important there. And that's what I think makes it such a special promotion. And it's a special time to be a fan of this promotion, and it's going places.
So those two matches were the top two.
Yep.
No doubt about it. The next level of matches, which were both, I mean, they were all really good, let's be honest. But the next level was Hangman Page against Switchblade Jay White for the U.S. title. It was an important match, really, for both of them, and I thought they delivered.
I thought they did deliver, and as Meltzer said in his post-match interview with Kevin Kelly, he said the crowd wasn't into it at first, but then eventually they both won the crowd over, which I was really happy to hear, not to piggyback off of what Meltzer said, but it's true. I mean, you could hear it in the arena itself. It was quiet at first, and then the more spots that happened, the more storytelling that was going on, they grabbed us, they got us.
And even he also added that there was pressure on both of these guys.
Oh, yeah.
You know, because I think both guys needed to show what they could do on the big stage and in a title match. And so it was important for them to deliver like they did.
Yeah, definitely.
A couple other matches that caught our eye.
Will Ospreay versus Liger, and a surprise appearance by Rey Mysterio, who of course didn't wrestle because he's hurt, but he was at least there. He explained, "I'm sorry, I got hurt. I really wish I could be here." And it seems like they're setting up an Ospreay Mysterio match for the future. How cool. Also, someone else came in at the end of the match.
Yeah, Marty Scurll declared his intentions in there as well. He wants Ospreay. He wants a title shot. Ospreay was emphatic that he wants Mysterio at some point. Mysterio was emphatic that he wants to face Liger first before he fights anybody. So lots of good storylines. And then, all the earlier matches, we're not going to hit them all, but obviously I think the whole show was great. I don't really think there was a match that was weak. Even Yano, I got to say the crowd was at least into him.
Oh my God. The crowd was so into Yano, and I loved it. I love that. It was so great. I know you don't like him the most,
it's
but
painful.
I used to not like him. Now I do.
I will say that's when I went to the merch stand to buy these shirts. As soon as I was like, it's Yano.
It's flipping Yano. That's what we always say when he comes up.
So, first experience with New Japan blew me away. I can't wait to get to another one. Another first-time experience for both of us. PWG this weekend on Friday night. And another great show and a new venue.
A new venue, and there's some new news about their old venue now. It seems like PWG just announced they're only going to have 3 more shows in Reseda. Wow, that's some big news. And you and I were speculating in previous episodes, is this on purpose? Was this new venue thing not an accident? And it seems like it was on purpose.
Yeah, I said in our podcast extra that you might have caught on YouTube. It's called Spare Change, by the way. We are going to do that on occasion from live events, live reaction right after shows. I said I felt like it was a testing ground because they made a couple comments about we're working out the kinks and stuff like that, and I think they wanted to see how it would play out. I mean, to me, it wasn't a coincidence. They had a big backdrop with the logo, beautiful stage. If this was a temporary home, to me, that told me that they were trying to go big here, see how it worked out, and boy, did it work out. It was great.
It really was, and we got a good spot by the bar. Actually, a great spot.
Yeah.
We could see everything, and as I said in Spare Change, Chucky T and Keith Lee came up right to where I was. I'm not exaggerating. Really, I could have held up my arm, not even at full length, and touched them. And Keith Lee had Chucky T on his shoulder, and he goes, "Move!" And I was scared, so I huddled with like a mass, and I was backing up. Beer spilled on me. Oh my God.
Wow.
They were right in front of us.
Oh, I almost got taken out by it because I was busy tweeting to our Twitter about how great Chucky T was on the mic to start the match, and all of a sudden I look up, and there they are right in front of me, and Chucky T is going to go up on the bar. And the other thing, and we talked about it during the show, the bartenders at the show, I was fascinated by them because they either had never seen wrestling before or at least had never seen wrestling up close. They were grinning from ear to ear and looking at each other like kids at Disneyland. It was unbelievable. So when that spot was going on with Keith and Chucky T right in front of us, they were just grinning from ear to ear as much as everybody else was.
In the one blurry picture I have of them close up where you can kind of tell they're near us, the bartenders are in the background just like hugging each other. Like they're so excited. I thought that was very, very kind of evident of what PWG does to people. It makes them a fan, even if they're not really a wrestling fan. How can you go to a PWG show or watch one on DVD and not love it? It's so in your face. It's real. It's something about it is just so fun to watch and awesome.
Well, and back to the venue a little bit, you talk about the environment. I think the new, bigger building didn't lose anything in the environment department. I think the crowd was hot in there as well. You still had the seats right around the ring. It was just bigger. There was more space. There was a balcony that people could look down. And so I thought it was great.
There was air conditioning, too.
Well, and there was air conditioning.
Because we heard a lot of stories about the other building, which doesn't have air conditioning, and it's hot as heck in there, apparently. But another thing you mentioned earlier was Chucky T on the mic, and boy, did he say some awesome things on the mic against Keith Lee, basically calling Keith Lee out, saying, "Why are you cheering this guy? He's going to WWE." And basically, you said you missed this, but Chucky T jumps on Keith Lee's back, grabs the mic, and starts berating him, like, on the mic as he's on his back, like a little leprechaun, it looked like, because Keith Lee is so massive. Chucky T looks so small compared to him. It was an awesome moment. The crowd laughed and popped, and I really enjoyed seeing that. Well done.
And then the ending, obviously, Keith Lee.
Spoiler, yeah.
Yeah, getting the belt. And just the emotion and that he talked with on the mic about how much it meant to him.
That was really, really nice to hear, and it seemed genuine. I mean, everyone in the building was so happy when he won. I just thought it was all very real and very wholehearted, everything he said. So I loved that little speech he gave, and everyone in the building just seemed really glad that he won.
Well, earlier in that night, our love affair with Zack Sabre Jr. started to take full effect, and it started right at the ring announcement when the ring announcer says Zack Sabre Jr. would like you to know that he won the New Japan Cup 2 effing days ago. Because
Awesome.
It literally was 2 days after he had won New Japan Cup. He's back in the States and he's wrestling, and that was just the beginning of his heel work. It went all the way through in a great match with Matt Riddle.
Oh, yeah, and he was posing for the camera, like, heelishly, flicking the camera off, like, when he's mid in submission to Matt Riddle. Oh, it's awesome. And
Getting into it with the fans in the front row.
Oh, yelling at the fans, telling them, sit down, you idiots. Oh, I can't even say enough. His heel work, as I said a few minutes ago, it really is to the next level right now. We were talking about it a few weeks ago. It's just like he keeps getting better and better. I can't wait to see what he does next.
And all the way to the end, when after the victory he didn't celebrate, he just walked right out and gave the crowd a 2-fingered Stone Cold salute on his way out. No reaction, no looking at the crowd, just out the tunnel with the fingers up. That was tremendous as well.
I mean, Matt Riddle, I love seeing him live.
Bro.
And how could you go wrong with that matchup? Both so good at submissions, both good at just getting the fans into it. Obviously, they're crowd favorites, so I liked that match a lot. But there were some other matches with lesser-known guys that I was surprised I liked too. People I had never heard of, which brings us to Ospreay versus Adam Brooks.
Never heard of Adam Brooks. I don't think you had either. He was great. First of all, he was really good in the ring, period. But he was funny. He was mocking Will Ospreay. I mean, you can describe the move better of what he did. That was a Will Ospreay move that he mocked.
So sometimes Will Ospreay will springboard off the ropes, he'll like backflip and then do his little pose when he's on the mat with his hand raised. Kind of like almost like a cartoon or movie character or anime character. Well, Adam Brooks rolls forward really terribly, rolls backwards, does a terrible cartwheel, like not even a full one, and then he badly poses just like Ospreay, and the crowd roars.
Yep.
It was really just well done.
And it was a great match. At the end, Ospreay and Brooks kind of hugged each other in the middle of the ring, mutual respect, because it was a really good match. And props to Adam Brooks. I want to see more of him because I was impressed by him. The rest of the card was great as well. I mean, Jonah Rock and Jeff Cobb, 2 huge athletic guys.
Jeff Cobb.
That was great when Jeff Cobb threw Jonah Rock. That was unbelievable.
How'd he do that? He's crazy strong.
So, and then you like the Fatal 4-Way match, which was a big deal in Southern California because it was all SoCal wrestlers. You liked that one a lot.
Yeah, the guy in line with us actually told us that they hadn't booked local SoCal wrestlers because PWG had been, wanting to book people who are the best in the world. So therefore, the local guys kind of get left out a little bit unless they're one of the people known as the best in the world. So this apparently was the first time in years and years that they booked local people on this show. And I was glad I was there to see it because I'm going to check these guys out. They were great.
Yeah, they were. One guy was called The Fly.
Oh, gosh.
He's got a gimmick. Let's just say that. You'll have to check it out. We both strongly recommend when that DVD comes out, I would buy it and get a look at it and see what the first show ever for PWG at the Globe Theater, first of many it would seem, but we were at history. The first show outside of Rosito, we were told in a decade, so that's a big deal.
And I've already pre-ordered it, so you can pre-order yours now, and I would because I'm not exaggerating just because we were there. It was a great show and well worth the money. I think you guys will enjoy it. I can't wait to hear your thoughts about it.
Finally, let's do some quick tidbits about the WWE. And we were both impressed by something in WWE on Raw, and I'll let you talk about it. Didn't even involve a match.
It didn't. it involved what WWE does the best out of everyone ever, including other sports networks, hype videos, anything. WWE does video packages better than anyone. And the one with Triple H and Steph training to go against Ronda and Angle, man, that was a great video package. So well edited. And not only well edited, but the story was great too. I mean, calling Angle an idiot, which you really loved.
I love that. That made me laugh.
And then just them saying that Ronda's arrogance makes her weak, and that they were always ready, that they own the company, and just their arrogance is what really actually made the video even better. Stephanie gets so much heat for, I don't know, I guess always opening Raw. A lot of people don't like Stephanie. They're like, oh, I'm sick of Stephanie opening up Raw. But you know what? She is a great heel. You think about the great heels we were talking about this weeks ago. Stephanie McMahon is a great heel in the classic sense of the word. You just love to hate her. And this was another example of that. What she said in the video package, just even her facial expressions, they're so angry looking. She's got this evil smirk. I love it.
Well, and the way she matter-of-factly says, you know, when we beat Ronda, we'll pick her up and we'll repackage her. And, you know, it was just the arrogance. But, yeah, the best was when Steph's in the middle of a sentence about Kurt Angle and Triple H goes, Kurt Angle's an idiot. That was great. And, by the way, speaking of video packages, great one on SmackDown. Not quite as good, but a Charlotte Flair hype video as well that I thought was really good, too. Elsewhere on Raw, just a couple other tidbits. Try as they want to make Roman Reigns the sympathetic character. Lesnar beats him up again. The crowd is chanting one more time. Give it up, WWE. You're not getting Roman Reigns to be the babyface here.
Well, I will say this. Roman got cheered a little bit when he entered the arena after Heyman was saying, oh, he's not here. And he said he was always going to be here. He comes in and he does get cheered, it sounded like to me. But no, you're right. Lesnar got cheered when he was beating up Roman yet again. And how many times are we going to hear this before they really understand what's going on? But, you know, I'm glad Lesnar got cheered because I do like to see Roman get beat up myself, so.
Well, I mean, we'll talk about WrestleMania next week. The only acceptable way Roman Reigns wins is if Brock Lesnar is leaving. Otherwise, it's gonna just irk me. It's gonna irk me if Roman wins. That's all.
Yeah, I mean, I'd love to see anybody else. I think he's going to for sure. And I do want a full-time champion, as I've said in the past. I do want to see someone who's on Raw every week defending the belt, every pay-per-view and every Raw. But I wish it wasn't Roman.
One final note from Raw. We finally got our Boss versus Bayley showdown. Throwdown in the back. I was happy to see them finally come to blows.
I loved their verbal exchange. I thought what they said was perfect. It was well scripted, well done. But I feel like we're getting them in the Battle Royal.
Yeah.
And not as a singles match, which is really a disappointment. It's a match that could have really just great sequences, great result, and it could be one of the best matches of all time if it was allowed to be on the Mania card as a singles match. But it looks like they're teasing it for another time.
They could change their mind, but I mean, the segment started with them both talking about being in this Battle Royal. The only justification would be that they're going to give us a tease of it at WrestleMania. Maybe it even comes down to those two.
I'm sure, yeah.
And then set it up for the next pay-per-view, which maybe is not as big a pay-per-view, but maybe that's the main event.
And maybe that gets people hyped up for stuff after WrestleMania. I could see that, because you need some stuff to carry on afterwards. It can't just be no feuds, no storylines going on afterwards. You can't have everything done and over with at Mania. But it's just, to me, it would be a missed opportunity. Because they've had a match of the year before, and they can do it again. And I've already said this before, but it's true. It's just, take advantage of what's right in front of you, of what could be great, what people could be talking about for years and years to come. So I don't know how I feel about that. I hope it gets a singles match, but I don't think it will. There's already a lot of singles matches and already a lot of women's matches on the card.
Yeah, so we'll see. But great week of wrestling. Again, it all started last Friday at PWG, continued Sunday at New Japan, and really Raw was a big letdown after those two to be honest.
It wasn't in the same league.
Not even in the same ballpark, but it was a fun weekend of wrestling.
Awesome.
The PWG was a bonus because we were only going out there for New Japan, then PWG fell into our lap, so couldn't have worked out better. And I got to see the Celtics win in Phoenix on Monday, so I'm good with that too.
Bonus. You know what? I really think the wrestling gods were smiling upon us. You will go to PWG. We almost didn't get tickets for Strong Style Evolved either. So it really, everything fell into place, and we're two lucky people right here to have been at those events because I really do think they were both historic.
Mm-hmm.
So when we come back, we'll be talking more about wrestling, including it'll be time for our extended discussion, Heads and Tails.
Hey wrestling fans, are you coming to New Orleans for WrestleMania next week? Do you like good beer? Then make sure you ask for a cold St. Arnold, whether it's a delicious Art Car IPA or an easy-to-drink fancy lawnmower. You can find St. Arnold beer throughout the Crescent City at fine establishments such as Old Saint, the Avenue Pub, the Bulldog, and many more. St. Arnold loves wrestling, and you'll love St. Arnold.
What? Hey, Jim, where does Wrestling Discussions live?
PWP Nation?
That's correct. PWP Nation is the #1 source for all things professional wrestling. They have great articles, podcasts, and overall great wrestling content. No dirt sheet rumors, just articles and facts.
You can follow PWP Nation on all social media platforms like Facebook at facebook.com/PWP Nation. You can also follow them on Twitter and Instagram with both using the same handles, which is at PWP Nation.
Radical. And please go to Apple Podcasts and subscribe to PWP Nation Network, where you will find all the great podcasts like Offended, Beer and Money, and many more. And please give us a Dave Meltzer rating. Give us that 5-star rating.
That's right. Go join the community today to get the best content for your professional wrestling needs.
PWP Nation, where wrestling discussion lives.
Welcome back to Two-Faced Wrestling Talk, and it's time for our extended wrestling discussion. It's called Heads and Tails. And this week we are going to discuss kind of like a pulse of the stock market, if you want. Since WrestleMania is just a few days away, we wanted to take a look at whose stock has risen, whose stock has fallen, who's kind of stayed the same. And we're not just talking WWE, we're talking across all brands, since WrestleMania is kind of the signature point of the year. We'll see various stars and who's on their way up and who's on their way down. One of the biggest guys on his way up, Braun Strowman.
Oh, yeah.
No.
Okay. I'm sorry. If you must have it, Braun!
You were going to get these hands if you didn't do it. How about his rise?
Since last WrestleMania, I would never have guessed he would be to this level right now. To me, I'd be okay if he was in the main event this year. I would literally be happy with that. Him versus Brock would be a dream match at Mania for me. Braun has gotten over. Yeah, he's still kind of new. He's still a little green, but it's organic. And I've said it time and time again, but that doesn't make it any less true. And that's why I'm repeating it now. He is organic. He is real. He is funny and just all around great.
I will give WWE credit too, though. They've put him in good positions with some of these ridiculous things they've had him do. Tipping over an ambulance, pulling down the set, turning the whole stage over on Kane. I mean, they've put him in a good position to get over, but you never know, except the crowd has gotten so behind him that they have had no choice but to... And then his feud with Lesnar, I mean, he's just had a great year.
Well, you know what really I think got him over? Throwing that chair at Roman Reigns' head. People were like, yes!
See, that was a great feud, too. Again, because I think they wanted Roman to be the babyface, and by the end, everybody's
Braun.
cheering for Braun, especially when he pushed the stretcher off the truck entrance.
Thank you, and yes.
Yes. So that was great. Well, one of the guys Braun Strowman has had a feud with this year and the last couple months, another guy that I would have never predicted when he was in NXT at this time last year would be so over, and it's Elias. Again, organic, funny. I mean, his thing the other night made me laugh. I mean, he is so good.
Talented, though,
and talented. And he's really good, by the way, in the ring as well. I mean, he's not Santino in there. I mean, he's funny, but good. I mean, his comment about the Cleveland Browns the other night had me in stitches. And so he's become one of my favorites for a number of reasons, and his stock skyrocketing.
I agree, and I will say that, WWE, a lot of times, you give me, you give me some grief for this. It doesn't excite me. I don't get into it. And you call me an elitist, like in other wrestling more. But Elias is somebody in WWE who has captured me. I think it's an example of what WWE is doing right. And it's part of the credit goes to WWE, but a lot of it goes to the crowd. And goes to Elias himself. He just, like we said, organically got over. And I can't wait to see more singles matches from him. I can't wait to see him become a main event guy, because I have no doubt in my mind that it will happen. It's not a question of if, it's a question of when.
Well, another one that's on the rise, and you might be surprised that we think this way, because the Young Bucks had one of the best matches of the year last year, the main event against the Hardys in Supercard of Honor, but their stock is still rising, which is kind of incredible.
My boys. And I don't, just mean their stocks rising in wrestling, but financially.
Mm-hmm.
Let's talk about the Hot Topic merch deal. It's really unheard of that independent wrestlers have their shirts featured in a national chain store. And their shirts are outselling not only WWE merch in there, but apparently it's some of the top selling shirts out of all the shirts in Hot Topic. That to me is incredible. Being the Elite is getting more mainstream press than ever before. You got guys like Cody, Skrull, Hangman Page, all these guys getting over because of this YouTube show, which the Young Bucks, it's their brainchild. So to me, yeah, Being the Elite has risen. Financially, the Young Bucks are doing better than even last year. And everyone's talking about the storylines on Being the Elite. I just feel like all this combined, the Young Bucks, believe it or not, are on the rise, and they will continue to be on the rise with All In on the horizon, because that's something that's never been done before. It's unique. It's revolutionary. It's going to change the business in my mind for independent wrestlers. It's going to change the game. And I think it's going to be competition for WWE eventually.
I will agree with you 100% on all that. The only thing I'm going to say they've maybe fallen their stock a little is in-ring. If you look at the match at Supercard of Honor, which is going to be a great match, but it's not as big a match as that Hardy's match was, which be hard to match up to, but...
So you're saying, like, their place on the card?
Yeah. I don't know. It just feels like they've taken a few more losses. Maybe it's because we just watched them lose. I don't know.
Well, I'm not basing this on wins and losses alone.
Yeah, I know. And that's what I'm saying.
They're still very valued by companies.
Yeah.
And that's even more important than wins and losses. And they win belts and then they lose them. And that's going to happen to every wrestler, in every promotion. But the Bucks are consistently booked at the top of cards, whether it's the main event or not. Now, yeah, Supercard of Honor, their match isn't as big as last year. But that's because you got Kenny versus Cody, which nothing's going to come close to that. The Young Bucks just headlined that New Japan American Strong Style Evolved show like we talked about, and everyone's talking about it. And in ring, their selling apparently has gotten better. I always thought they were great in ring, but people who always doubted them are kind of giving them props now. So in that way, I think in ring, their stock has risen a bit. But I do see your point.
Well, let's talk about another tag team whose stock is rising, and that's in the WWE. That's the Usos. They're going to get a chance to be at WrestleMania in a tag team title match. So right there, their stock has gone up, but it's not as high as if you had asked me 6 days ago. Because I think now that it's a triple threat match, it kind of takes away a little of the Usos' prestige. And I kind of wonder if they're going to have the Bludgeon Brothers go run through everybody in that.
Yeah.
So I thought the Usos' stock was a lot higher about 5 days ago, but it's still gone up since last year. They've gotten over with their gimmick, not with you, but with a lot of people. I can't stand it. With a lot of people. Even the house show we went to in Tampa a few months ago, they got a pop from the crowd. So their popularity's gone up. Their wrestling has never been up for question in my mind. I've always thought they were really good. Slightly up.
Well, yeah, because their whole promo against the New Day was about how they've never gotten their match.
Right.
Their one-on-one match with people at Mania, and now it's a triple threat. So that kind of goes back on the promo, makes it mean less, I think. And like you said, it kind of makes their stock seem like it's less, like it's lowered. But I will also say this, it was surprising. You talked about how they're over with the crowd. My friend Cece on Twitter asked a question to me and a few other people but a lot of others chimed in and answered. Your top 5 singles wrestlers and your top 5 tag teams currently right now. And I guess she means favorites. Tons of people said the Usos. I did not say the Usos, of course. And someone was like, no Usos? And I'm like, I can't stand their gimmick. But to each their own. But yeah, the Usos now are people's favorites more than ever before. And it wouldn't have been this way last year.
We've got a couple more on the rise. One that we just talked about a little while ago in the first segment. He just keeps going on the rise for us. But he clearly is with the American crowd. We saw it this weekend. Suzuki. Just so good and so popular. And for a 49-year-old guy whose whole thing is just beating the hell out of people, he is so popular right now.
I watched a promo on New Japan Pro Wrestling's English YouTube channel where they have subtitles, and he literally says, I will kill you. I mean, he says that to people, and he's calling people slime, and it's just awesome. What I like about Suzuki is he seems to be more over with the American crowd, as you alluded to, than ever before. When I first started liking New Japan Pro Wrestling and Suzuki, I didn't hear a lot of people talking about him. Now I hear a lot of people discussing him on Facebook, on Twitter, in wrestling forums, and even more so, he's won a lot of title belts this year, and rightfully so. He's in some of the best shape of his life. He looks really, really good. If you look back at 2014, in his match with AJ Styles, he doesn't look as skinny and fit. He's performing now, I think, to a higher level, and he's more in shape, and he's winning belts.
Well, and the thing with him, I think, is maybe the barrier for some Japanese wrestlers is their inability to speak English. So, when they cut a promo, it doesn't resonate with an American crowd. Suzuki doesn't speak a word of English. It doesn't matter. You can tell what he's saying. You can tell he's threatening to beat up everybody.
It's his demeanor and the way he says things.
Yeah, so I think he doesn't have to speak English at all. His body language, how he says whatever he's saying, certainly is easy to read. Well, we got one more on the rise, and it's not a wrestler per se, but the women's division as a whole, and maybe this is the biggest riser of everything other than maybe Braun, in my opinion. The level that the women's division has gone in the last year is unbelievable. When you think there's been Royal Rumble, Elimination Chamber, Hell in a Cell, Iron Man match. It's incredible what's gone on in the women's division, and the women are becoming as big a stars as the men.
And that's the way it should be. They're more respected. They're main eventing like it should be. And I love to see that. It's great. And it's how it should have been a long time ago. But you've got a really great crop of talent, really great women's wrestlers right now. Charlotte, Asuka is so over. I mentioned this a few weeks ago when she came out after that Ruby Riott Charlotte match. The crowd went insane. They were so loud. It's great to feel that feeling that a woman is so over with everyone in the crowd. Whereas you look back at the last time Mania was in New Orleans, during the women's match, everyone went to the concession stand. And that was because it was after the Undertaker loss, of course. Everyone was bummed out. But even so, they considered the women's matches the bathroom break, the concession time. And it's so great to see how it's changed now, that it's taken seriously. People stay in their seats for the women's matches.
Well, and look, I think even last year's WrestleMania, the women's matches weren't nearly at the level of any of the matches we've seen over the course of the year. Because they, again, tried to cram too many people into the matches and stuff.
Multi-women matches.
Yeah, so I think even since last WrestleMania, the women's division has taken off in a good way, in a great way. And we've got great women's matches coming at Mania and a feud with Bayley and Boss.
Can I add one more riser real quick?
Sure.
Of course, we would be remiss not to say Okada. Yeah, he's been great forever, but he keeps having great match after great match, and he's one of the greatest champions of all time. Who's going to beat him? That's the question. I don't know, but he's literally a once-in-a-lifetime champion, and I don't know if we'll ever see somebody like him ever again in terms of prestige, great matches, and just the length of the time he's held the title. When will he drop it? I don't know, but it doesn't look like soon. I don't think it's going to be Sabre, but we'll have to see.
I don't know. Could be Zack Sabre Jr. Love Okada, though. I mean, his demeanor is another one that's perfect. He's just so cocky. Yeah. I love it.
Cocky, cool, and collected.
Yeah. So those are the risers. Now let's talk about some guys who really haven't moved up or down in any way. And we'll start with Cesaro. Yes, he's the tag team champion, but it felt like he was on the rise, especially as a singles guy. But even them as a tag team, I think seemed like they were on the rise, but now it's kind of just leveled off. And I don't know about Cesaro right now. I don't think negatively of him, but I'm not as excited about him as maybe I was a year and a half ago when I really thought the sky was the limit for him.
It's just, in terms of being in the tag team with Sheamus, all their matchups have gotten stale. So maybe the mixing of the brands on pay-per-view will help that a little bit. Help make the bars seem like they're a bigger deal than they seem right now. Because they are a big deal. But it's just not coming off that way because everything we've seen with the Raw division, it's like we've seen it. And now we needed to mix it up to remember how great they are as a tag team. But as a singles wrestler, Cesaro could have done anything. He's somebody who should have gotten a singles push a long time ago. They say, oh, it's his charisma, or oh, it's his promo skills. Not true. He's cut promos behind the scenes that have made people talk about what he's saying, that made people excited. I just don't know what's the deal with them not giving him a good push. He is a great wrestler. And to me, the sky was the limit, like you said, and it should still be the limit because he could do anything, but they just don't use him that way.
He could have had a great run against Lesnar.
He could have.
I think that could have been a great series. Maybe some things will fall into place if maybe they lose the tag team belts and then Roman wins. Maybe we get a Roman Cesaro down the road for the title. Maybe Cesaro starts to get that push again. It's all speculation, but who knows? Another static guy, a guy you're very passionate about, Sami Zayn.
Now, one could argue, why do you think he's static? He had like a character change, and he's doing big stuff with Daniel Bryan and Kevin Owens and Shane McMahon. But to me, big things are singles matches, like really prestigious ones. Well, maybe there'll be one in the future with Daniel Bryan, but until then, I do feel like his stock has fallen a little bit. Let's not just go back a year. Let's go back 2 years to when he had the awesome match with Nakamura in Nakamura's debut at NXT TakeOver. That match is one of my favorite matches of all time. And the crowd loves Sami. They gave him a great farewell out of NXT. And he was prized when he joined WWE, the main roster. People were so excited. But I feel like they have not used him the way they could. Before he turned heel, Sami Zayn to me is a 1 in a million babyface. So little people can be believable as a babyface. Bayley to me is a believable babyface, a very authentic and just natural one. Sami Zayn is on that same level. And if you book him that way, he'll be one of the greatest babyface champions. I mean, his selling is superb. It's a shame to me that he doesn't get the one-on-one time, and I have a feeling it might be because of how he looks. He's not Vince's type of style of guy in terms of size and even just demeanor. I kind of was listening to a Kevin Owens, Sami Zayn interview on Chris Jericho's podcast, Talk is Jericho, and Sami Zayn was saying he's not even sure what Vince really thinks of him. He doesn't have too many interactions, whereas Kevin Owens has had a lot of interaction with Vince backstage. So all that to me is very interesting. It kind of says a lot about how he's looked upon as a performer. And that's just a shame because look at his stuff on the indies. Look at his stuff in NXT. He could be a top guy.
Let's talk about some guys who have fallen, and much like what I said about the Usos, my opinion has changed a little in the last 5 days. I will say the same about Rusev. I had Rusev as falling. Obviously, his popularity has gone way up with Rusev Day. But he's just, I mean, if you think back 2 years, 3 years ago when he was dominant, where he had Lana by his side, he's running through people. And then, as soon as they put him with Aiden English, no disrespect to English, I'm just like, what are they doing with him? Like, it felt like it was the end for Rusev. So
it did at first, but they made it work.
Yeah, they have made it work, and now he's in the title match. It's a fatal 4-way, so his stock not falling as far as I would have said 5 days ago, but he's a much bigger and better wrestler than they're letting him be right now.
I mean, yeah, if you go back to that run where he was undefeated and where he had the awesome match against Cena at WrestleMania, And just, he had an aura about him that seemed legitimate. Like, he was a great fighter, he was a contender, and he could be a main event player. Again, another person like Sami Zayn, they kind of put some reins on him. I just don't know. Let them be who they are. Let them be what, they're good at being, and just give them that room to do what they're good at and to be in the role that they can thrive in.
Another guy that we've got falling, and you might be a little surprised by it because he got the promotion from from NXT to WWE. It's Ty Dillinger, because he's gotten the promotion 10, but he's just above being a jobber. Basically, he's got no push on SmackDown at all.
Although his catchphrase is 10, and he's the perfect 10. Right now on the roster, he's nowhere near a perfect 10 because he's not being used hardly at all.
No.
You hardly see him on TV. It's such a shame because he's somebody, again, who, if used right, can be a great, definitely at least a mid-carder. I mean, I believe he could be even more. But it's just, they don't book these guys right, not just in the matches, but storyline-wise. And they have so many wrestlers, and I'll touch on this later. This is teasing my little ending. They have so many wrestlers, it's hard for them to use everyone. And that's why I don't know why they're acquiring so many more people from the indies. People like Ty Dillinger should be an asset, someone that they grew, that they developed, that they made into something that who normally wouldn't have been anything. Use that. You put so much work into this character. Do something with it.
I agree. And then finally, this is just a slight fall, and to me it's just perception more than anything. Adam Cole.
Yeah.
This time last year, he fights Marty Scurll at Supercard of Honor. They're setting the stage for a feud with Omega.
Which is a big feud. Like, this isn't just any feud. A feud with Omega would have been incredible for Cole, especially.
And now he's in NXT, and he's over in NXT. I'm not saying he's not, and he's having a good run there. But it just seems not quite what it was at Ring of Honor yet.
I think it's going to get there. That's what you're saying,
right.
Kind of. It's not there yet. It's just, seeing how excited everyone at Supercard of Honor was to see him in that match against Marty Scurll, and everyone was so excited at the thought of Omega versus him because there was a storyline there.
Mm-hmm.
Is he having that same type of storyline possibility right now? Not yet. But it could all change with NXT TakeOver and beyond, so we'll just have to see. He is really over, and he is doing well there. But to me, he's not at the level I thought he was last year.
Wouldn't surprise me to see him win the North American title, though, in NXT at NXT TakeOver. Well, another tremendous heads and tails discussion. We hope you enjoyed our extended discussion. And when we come back on Two-Faced Wrestling Talk, we're going to take your questions.
Our awesome Two-Faced logo was created by artist Eric Hudson. Check him out on Facebook at Eric Hudson Illustration. Hudson is spelled Hodson. He also has a Patreon where you can directly support his wrestling artwork, which is based off of comic book covers. His Patreon is patreon.com/HeyMelby, HeyMelby. Also, go to webtoons.com and subscribe to his new comic, The Dreaded Dinosaur Man. His art can also be purchased on Store Envy. Thanks, Eric. We love your logo.
Tricky, come on. You know Mr. Brightside is the best Killer song.
No, it's not, dude. No, it's... Oh, crap. Dude, we're live. We're live.
What?
We're live. Hey, it's Tricky and Stoutsy from the Offended Podcast, produced by PWP Nation.
We're basically the Seinfeld of podcasts.
And just because we are produced by a professional wrestling site doesn't mean we are a professional wrestling show. Recorded in the glorious Cockpit Studios, we are actually a show about anything, and sometimes just friends drinking and discussing life, pop culture, and sports, but with no filter.
Anything goes on Offended. You can find us on Apple Podcasts under the PWP Nation Network, along with other great PWP Nation produced shows.
And if you like our show, head on over to prowrestlingtees.com/offended-podcast to buy our shirt. Support us, eh?
You can follow Offended on Instagram at OffendedPod, and us on Twitter. You can follow Tricky at Trick1042, and myself, Stoutsy, at J_Stout09.
And thank you for listening. By the way, Jim, all these things I've done is the best Killer song.
Erroneous! On all accounts.
Welcome back to Two-Faced Wrestling Talk. Just a reminder, please follow us on Instagram, Facebook, and especially Twitter at Two-Faced-Pod, TWOFACEDPOD. We really want to hear from you. And thank you to everyone who sent in questions. We want to give a special shout out to 3 people whose questions we're going to do next week because they have to do with WrestleMania. And next week, it's going to be a lot about WrestleMania and WrestleMania weekend. So here are the 3 people who gave questions, but we'll be taking them next week. Magnet and Steel at Deej Kirkby. Thanks for your question. Mr. Chris Lundroche at Chris LANDROCHE. And Rollin MARACLE. Thank you guys so much for your questions. Can't wait to answer them next week. And now to this week's questions. Our good friends at Smark2Death, and they have a great podcast. They asked, do you have a problem with the way Matt Jackson's acting skills and selling were portrayed in the Golden Lovers vs. Young Bucks match? Many on the interwebs are upset about it.
Well, I mean, we talked about it at the beginning of the show. I thought the selling by everybody was great. I didn't have a problem with anybody. I didn't feel like anybody was over or underselling anything. I mean, Matt has been doing a great job selling his back injury for months now. I think he legitimately seemed like he was mad at Kenny.
Yeah.
Didn't want anything to do with him. So I didn't have any problem with his selling.
I thought his selling was great. I mean, the back has been going on for so long. And to me, the Bucks, with this run of matches after Wrestle Kingdom, are proving that they can sell in a match, as I said earlier. And I asked my friends at Smark2Death, I said, do these complaints have to do with overselling or underselling? And I thought he was going to say overselling, maybe. Because maybe some people are thinking he's overacting.
Like he's being too dramatic.
Yeah. But no, he told me a lot of the complaints are about underselling. And I just don't know how that could be. A lot of people said that they were really emotionally invested in that match. And that just tells me that their selling was on point. Even people who aren't really big fans of the Young Bucks. So to me, that speaks volumes about how actually his selling is working and his acting is working. So to me, I had no problem with it.
Let's go to our next question. It's from Sage Derenek Williams, who asks which of the Young Bucks is better, and also did you see them as Generation Me in TNA?
This question's kind of hard because, the Young Bucks are like, I don't know, they feel like my family or something. It's like trying to pick a favorite parent or something. It's almost impossible. But I lean towards Nick because he always engages on social media so easily. But also, I have a soft spot for Matt because around my birthday, I had tweeted them something about being the Elite and how a release of an episode was one of the best birthday presents I could ask for, and I didn't even ask for it. And Matt said, happy birthday to one of my favorite fans. And I was like, oh my gosh. I'm still marking out about it. But to me, I really love them both. I don't know. They're so nice. You can't find 2 nicer people in real life than them and their families. Even Matt's wife, Dana, she's incredible. So sweet. Such a nice person, a sweetheart. And they're changing the game in the wrestling business, as I said earlier. And I haven't really seen too much of them as Generation Me. They were kind of in the Generation Me mode when they had one of my favorite matches in PWG. It was them versus the Cutler Brothers versus Paul London and El Generico, and that's one of my favorite matches. And they were kind of basically Generation Me style Young Bucks, which basically like they're in plain pants. It's very weird, but I still loved that match.
Nick and Matt, to me, I mean, you could put both names in a hat and pick them out, and I think they're pretty even. But in ring, I think Nick is the better aerial guy, better wrestler overall. But I mean, the difference to me is not major. I think Matt's really good too. So. Well,
you watch any interview with the Young Bucks where they're asked about their athletic abilities, Matt will straight up say Nick is the better wrestler. Nick is the more aerial and, the one who takes all the risks, essentially. Not all the risks, but a lot of the bigger risks.
All right.
Our next question is from my good friend Aaron, and he writes for PWP. He's part of our PWP family, and you can find him on Twitter at Aaron, ERON_PWP. He says, is there any past wrestling, New Japan Pro Wrestling or otherwise, legend that you'd like to see full-time and in their prime be on the active roster with the current crop of NJPW talent?
Well, the guy that kind of came to mind for me was Triple H, because I think Triple H had so many great in-ring, out-of-ring stories in WWE, and I just picture him going against Suzuki and how good that would be. But on the flip side, how good it would be for him to go against Okada, and of course against Kenny Omega. So I think if I could see Triple H in his prime, not now, against any of those guys, I think he'd be fun to watch in New Japan.
That's an odd pick, but I could see it being really fun and interesting and different than anything happening right now. Me, at first, I was saying, well, Makabe and Liger are both on the roster right now, but obviously they're not in their prime fully. They're still great. They still have great matches, but I would love to see them with this current crop of talent, but in their prime. And some other, unique picks I chose. Ric Flair would be great in his prime there right now. Vader, because he had, big matches in Japan back in the day. But right now, I'd love to see some of the stuff he could do. I hope Vader bounces back. He's dealing with some health issues right now. Really hope he has a speedy recovery. But another big one, and I kind of took this from you. I almost stole it, because last week, or the week before, you mentioned some kind of awesome dream match between RVD versus Ospreay. That started getting me thinking, man, RVD could have a ton of great matches on the roster right now with the New Japan talent, like RVD versus Kushida versus Okada, as you said, versus Ospreay versus Hiromu Takahashi. The possibilities are endless, so those are some of my picks.
Let's move on to @TRICK1042. That's Todd Rick. And he wants to know, if WWE versus New Japan was ever announced, what do you think the main event should be? The obvious one for both of us was
AJ Styles versus Omega.
Yeah, I mean, we both said that right away when we first looked at that question.
It's the easier pick because obviously leaders of Bullet Club, you got that backstory. That would be such an easy story and feud to build, and it'd be so entertaining to watch. And arguably the two best wrestlers besides Okada on the planet. So who wouldn't want to see it? I also said Omega versus Adam Cole, because like we touched on earlier, it never got to happen, and people wanted to see it. Another Bullet Club storyline. Two prominent people in Bullet Club. What would that be? The story is well done. And then I got some other things that I kind of want to touch on. It wouldn't be the main event, but some other matches on that New Japan versus WWE card that'd be fun.
Well, I said Suzuki versus Kevin Owens. I know I keep going back to Suzuki, but Suzuki versus anybody really would be good.
Yeah.
But I think Suzuki and Kevin Owens would be really good. You had a good one for the tag team.
Oh, come on. The New Day versus the Young Bucks. And it's because on social media, they've had these fun back and forths for like the last 2 or 3 years where they kind of do promos on each other and make little videos. And actually, Xavier Woods and Kenny Omega have done a lot of gaming conventions together, and they've had gaming matches against each other, video game competitions. It's so fun to see them go head-to-head and talk smack. Imagine that, but in a wrestling ring. It'd be magic to me.
Well, WWE could bring back Santino, and you could have Santino versus Yano in a match that would make me stop watching wrestling altogether.
Flippin' Yanu.
Flippin' Yanu. But that was just one for a comedy match because those were two comedy wrestlers. I don't really want to see that, trust me.
Oh, gosh. I think Sami Zayn versus Kushida would be awesome. Great in-ring abilities. That would be so amazing. And lastly, this is kind of fun. And I went all out there with this. This is very weird, so bear with me, guys. Hiromu Takahashi with stuffed animal cat Daryl at ringside versus Natty with maybe she'll get a stuffed animal made of Two Paws, her famous cat that everyone loves. She has a shirt, it says Two Paws. If you guys don't know about Two Paws or Daryl, Google them. They're flippin' awesome. Two little cute kitties, one's stuffed, one's real. And I think that match would be hilarious, and they both got like red and pink hair, and so that would just be fun, a mixed gender match.
You had one more there, too.
Oh, gosh, yeah. Vince McMahon versus Gato, a Booker versus Booker match. How cool would that be? It'd be weird, but I think it'd be a lot of fun.
All right, next one.
All right, our good friend Graham. Thanks for sending this question, Graham. At Mr. Bagshaw. He says, with watching and loving my first 2 New Japan Pro Wrestling matches this week, Young Bucks versus Golden Lovers and Zack Sabre winning the New Japan Cup, what are the classic New Japan matches that a rookie likes me need to see next?
Well, I mean, truth be told, I really only got into New Japan 15 months ago, and it was because of her. So I don't have a lot I can offer in this. I can tell you that the first match I watched was Kenny Omega versus Okada
Wrestle Kingdom.
from Wrestle Kingdom, and that blew my mind and really got me into the promotion. I had seen a couple matches on Access, AJ Styles versus Nakamura, if you go back into that vault.
Wrestle Kingdom 10.
Yep. But beyond that, I don't have a lot of recommendations, but you have recommendations and a place to get more recommendations.
I do. But firstly, when I was first getting into New Japan Pro Wrestling, right before Wrestle Kingdom 11, I decided, I want to see more Wrestle Kingdoms. I kind of want to have a little mini marathon. So what I did was I watched Wrestle Kingdom 7 all the way through Wrestle Kingdom 10 in like a week's amount of time. That's a lot of wrestling, but it was so much fun, and you got to see some older stars that aren't there anymore. You got to see AJ Styles in New Japan. You got to see Nakamura when he was still there, Finn Balor, and he was then known as Prince Devitt. All those people in past Wrestle Kingdoms, plus Suzuki in one of those Wrestle Kingdoms had a great live entrance. The woman who sings his song performed it live, and it was magical. And again, I'm using that corny word, but it is true. I listen to it at the gym, that particular version, all the time. But somewhere you could find more matches to watch is on Reddit. They've got a Google shared document. It's a spreadsheet of all these matches that they have links straight going back to New Japan World. So you do have to have a New Japan World subscription, but it's so helpful because there's a link and there's a description, and he even color-coded the matches. So he's got matches that are highly recommended, matches that are just recommended, and then worth a watch matches. And they're all coded certain ways to tell which are which. And again, I'll provide that link on my Twitter at SuperKickingIt. Follow me so you could find that document on there. SuperKickingIt. There's also some other good random matches. I really enjoy Okada versus Suzuki from this year's G1. That was one of my favorite matches. Match. I know we keep talking about Suzuki, but he's just that darn good. And again, if you want to know more about New Japan Pro Wrestling and you don't really understand what's happening, nerddown.com has a great guide for beginners. And it's basically laying out some of the basics, like what their big shows are, their titles, why they have faction and who the factions are, the top stars. So check that out for more information.
Let's go to another question. This is from Dennis Jones at ZELANTHIS89. And he wants to know, do you think the Bullet Club is going to use All In 2018 as a launching point for their own promotion or a school or dojo?
I don't really see them doing their own promotion because they already have busy schedules as it is. I don't see them not taking in-ring work and in-ring bookings just to have their own promotion. I just think they'll be too busy. I can't see a point in time where they're not going to be a part of New Japan Pro Wrestling in, the soon future. Maybe long away, I could see that happening. And their own school, maybe they'll have their name attached to a school, but again, too busy to be really involved with something like that.
Yeah, I mean, unless they're going to give something up, or maybe it comes to a point where they want to stay at home more, or at least in the United States, not really just at home, but that's the only way I see it happening. Otherwise, I can't see them starting their own promotion, participating in it, starting a school. These guys don't do anything, 50%. They do everything 100%, so they're not going to just do something to do it and just slap their name on it.
No, they're perfectionists, and they really go, no pun intended, all in everything they do.
All right,
so our next question comes from Darth Vapor, and he's on Twitter at metal_2006. With the tension in Bullet Club, could we see a split in Bullet Club, kind of like how the NWO did in WCW? If this were to happen, who would be in Kenny's Bullet Club? Who would be in Cody's? Would this cause the Bucks to break up, especially after what we saw on Being the Elite?
Well, and also what we saw in New Japan, Cody was trying to to suck up to Gorillas of Destiny a little bit, and they weren't having it. So I think you could set it up for a while, and it would make for some interesting matches over the course of the year. You know, we kind of split up who we thought would be on Team Kenny versus Team Cody. The only ones we could definitely put on Team Cody were Matt Jackson, Marty Scurll, and Hangman, and everybody else we kind of had on Team Kenny right now.
We did, and that's if the Bucks split up. Because in the last Being the Elite, it did kind of seem like Nick is not trusting Cody. Matt seems like he's more apt to trust Cody, but I don't know because it kind of left you hanging if Matt agreed with Nick or not. So we'll just have to see during more Being the Elite episodes that will probably be released this week leading up to Supercard of Honor. Or maybe even more things unfolding at Supercard of Honor. We'll know more of the direction they're going after that. But I do see a Buck versus Buck match maybe happening. It could be even at All In.
Yeah, or Kenny versus Marty, Kenny versus Hangman Page. You could have some combination of some 6-man tag matches. I think it would make for some fun matches.
And fun storylines.
And
Interesting
you let it go for a while, and then they reunite at some point, maybe towards the end of the year, and they all realize that Cody was the problem, and
maybe they kick him out.
And they kick him out, and they blame him, and they all come back together.
And what a sweet reunion that would be, huh?
Sure.
Whatever.
Of course, Kota Ibushi is not amused by any of this. He's like, wait.
Where do I fit in?
Yeah, exactly.
Our next question comes from PC Hassler, and he's on Twitter at PCH He says, Los Ingobernales have factions set up in both Mexico and Japan, and both factions are hot. I can see Los Ingobernales starting up here. You just have to speak Spanish to join. Can LIJ and Bullet Club have a 3-country feud?
Well, if it's going to come in WWE, they'll change the name, of course.
Of course, like they did with Bullet Club, with Balor Club.
But you've got some guys that would obviously fit in WWE. So, I mean, we talked about Cien Almas. Yeah, I mean...
Kalisto, Sin Cara, Dorado. Tons of people could join. And really, Los Ingobernales is kind of over no matter where it is. I mean, I could also see a group in Ring of Honor representing them. But then again... It kind of is like that with New Japan because New Japan is partnered with Ring of Honor anyway. So yeah, it could work in WWE if they change the name because they can't obviously use it.
Next question is from Brotherly Love Wrestling. Who do you think should be the first real feud for Daniel Bryan, meaning after this KO Sami Shane storyline is over, hopefully after Mania?
Well, you and I both kind of agree on this. It's the obvious choice is The Miz. The story's there. The animosity's there. I love everything about what could unfold with The Miz and Daniel Bryan. It needs to happen. Not only should it happen, but I feel like I just said, it needs to.
Yep. I think also an obvious choice down the road is AJ Styles. One a little outside the box that I was thinking of is if Kurt Angle continues to wrestle. Kurt Angle versus Daniel Bryan, going back to the whole thing leading up to Survivor Series where Daniel Bryan tried to make peace, went to the show, got beat up.
The Raw Invasion angle.
Yeah, blamed Kurt Angle and all that. So maybe you could have something like that as well.
I like that idea. Also, obviously, I'd love to see a singles match against Sami Zayn. So after this whole multi-man thing is over, just Daniel Bryan versus Sami Zayn. They've had great matches on the Indies. They could have great matches in WWE.
Okay, last one.
Last one from my good friend Diesel at Diesel_VFTR, and you could also catch their podcast on Twitter at ViewFromTopRope. So since it's fresh on my mind, I would like to know who are 3 wrestlers who have passed on that you regret never being able to see wrestle in person.
Well, I mean, with the documentary coming up, Andre the Giant comes to mind. He was a great one. I think we both have one on the same list in Brian Pillman.
Oh, yeah.
Unless I may have seen him in WCW/NWA, but I don't know for sure. So I'm going to say I didn't see him. If I did, I don't remember it. And then I would have loved to have seen the Iron Sheik in person. I know I mentioned him last week as a heel. He was so much fun to boo, and he got under everybody's skin. He'd be a fun one to see, too.
Yeah, definitely. And my choices would be Bam Bam Bigelow, Mr. Perfect, and you said Brian Pillman. And actually, I'm really excited. I just got a new book in the mail. It's called Crazy Like a Fox, The Definitive Chronicle of Brian Pillman 20 Years Later by Liam O'Rourke. I cannot wait to read this book. It's going to be awesome. I've heard great things about it. Meltzer actually had it in his Wrestling Observer Newsletter Awards. It was one of the choices for Best Book, and it won Best Book by vote. And I can't wait to read it. So, honorable mentions for me would go to Macho Man and, kind of controversial, Chris Benoit, but only as an in-ring wrestler. I do not approve of what he's done outside the ring, of course.
Right, of course. So
now,
good questions.
Great questions. Thank you, everyone, for sending them in. Continue to send them in because we love hearing from you. We love interacting with you. Again, at Two-Faced Pod, TWOFACED POD. But now it's time to close out the show and send them home.
And I'm going to start with what's the best match at WrestleMania? Well, you've got lots of good contenders coming up. Lesnar versus Reigns. You've got Ronda Rousey. But you know what might be the best match at WrestleMania? And 70% of the crowd will not even react? How about the Cruiserweight Championship? It is a crime what the WWE has done with this Cruiserweight division. Mustafa Ali, Cedric Alexander is going to be an incredible match. I caught up on 205 because I'm just as guilty of losing interest in 205 Live. I started watching the semifinals of the tournament, and the matches were so good, and then I look at guys like Itami and Tozawa who are buried on the roster. I think WWE has done this division a huge disservice. If you watch the Cruiserweight Classic, it was awesome at Full Sail University because the crowd was into it. If you watch 205 Live now, half the crowd has gone home because SmackDown ends and the people that are there want to see the superstars and they don't know the 205 guys enough. The crowd that is there is silent until there's just a big spot hit, and then there's some oohs and ahs. So if I'm playing WWE boss for a while, the 205 Live division goes back to Full Sail University. You tape 2 shows every 2 weeks, NXT and 205 Live, and the crowd would be into it. The stars would go. I mean, we've seen how NXT stars have gotten big at Full Sail University. The 205 guys would be big as well. And meanwhile, some of these guys who are great stars in the world, the Japanese stars I mentioned, Itami and Tozawa, guys who came to WWE with all this big promise and are basically no names. It's all just a crime. I think the WWE has got to do something if they want to breathe life into this division.
Hopefully Triple H can bring these guys to the forefront and do something with it. But I'm closing out the show with something different. A different crime done by WWE, which is buying up all the independent stars, bringing them over, and then not using them. Not just not using them correctly, like you kind of alluded to, but not using them, at all. In a big way on TV, etc. And I actually have a Sami Callihan quote, which kind of talks about this a little bit from the recent I Am Jericho interview that he did. And I don't know, I just want to see variety in wrestling. So to me, I don't want all these guys continually going to WWE if they're not going to be used. I've said this last week, I've said this many times. They've got one of the most stacked rosters of all time, but you can't possibly use everyone, you can't possibly put everyone into storylines and feuds. There's just not enough television time. It's impossible. So Sami says it best. He kind of alludes to how independent wrestling needs to work together to keep variety in wrestling if they can. So he says, WWE has the world monopolized in professional wrestling. That's cool. WWE is its own thing. Everyone else, not one company is ever going to be as big as WWE. WWE has put themselves in a way that there's no way anyone can ever compete with them. Now they're buying up indie companies pretty much, putting guys under contract because right now they realize that the new wrestling boom is coming from the indies. It's coming from all these guys because new platforms with social media and things like that. And now there can be real-life megastars in professional wrestling that don't work for WWE. I think that scares WWE, to be honest. Jericho says, yeah, look at Cody, look at Kenny Omega, look at you. Sami continues saying, now if there is a successful indie show, they're running NXT shows in the same territory. It's smart for them. Now they are monopolizing, getting indie talent under the contract without even putting them on television. That's smart. But now everyone has to work together to work with each other. And now Impact Wrestling is the first one to say, we are sick of this contract stuff over people's likeness and name. You own your intellectual property now. If you build a character here and you leave, you own the character because you did the legwork. You built that character. That's awesome. That's going to make more people want to work with Impact. Impact is trying to tie all of this together to help out all of us. The boys will have more places to work and more money to make. To me, that's interesting. It shows you what Impact's trying to do with their new contracts. I haven't caught up with Impact as much as I should, but I feel like that's kind of what the indie world's doing right now. There's more creative freedom. There's more in-ring freedom, allowances to do what you want in-ring, and that needs to stay in the independents so that there can be variety in wrestling, so that wrestling outside of WWE stays as attractive as it is right now, because we need other wrestling to flourish so that, as Sammy alludes to, WWE doesn't become the sole monopoly in wrestling. We don't want that. We want variety, and that's my thing. I want variety to always exist in wrestling.
And variety always made WWE better. That's why the Attitude Era became what it was, and I think it's why you've seen Raw kind of take off a little bit now, because they are getting pushed and they know that the storylines need to be better, the wrestling needs to be better. So I completely agree with you.
Well, thanks so much for joining us. We really would love to hear from you again. Check out our Twitter, Facebook, Instagram, another plug, at TwoFacedPod, TWOFACEDPOD. Check me out at SuperKickingIt, SuperKickingIt. You.
And I'm at PBoron88, and we look forward to seeing you next week. It's WrestleMania week next week, and we're going to have all sorts of WrestleMania content, but we're not going to forget all the other great shows that are going to be in New Orleans next week, so we look forward to talking to you next week.
Thank you.